Hi, it's Dee here for MySacredBlood.com. Welcome and welcome back to the only channel on YouTube that focuses exclusively on truly holistic menstrual care. If you haven't already done so, please go ahead and subscribe and share this video with at least one person who you feel will benefit from the content. As for the giveaway, first place winner will win all of the products that you've seen here featured in this video, plus the Starfire menstrual massage oil, and second place winner will win 2 products of their choice. To be entered to win, you simply have to go to mysacredblood.com, join the mailing list, and if you're already on the mailing list, then you're already entered to win. Winners will be announced right here on YouTube on Monday, January 11th at noon, and will also be notified by email. Today we are going to be discussing the origins of Menses, and that's where holistic or truly holistic menstrual care comes in. Because when we talk about holism, we are talking about looking at the whole of a thing. And in this case, we're going to be looking at the whole of menstruation from the very start. Well, we don't exactly know where menstruation began, how it began, why women menstruate. Is it a result of a genetic mutation? Is it just a natural occurrence in the evolutionary process? Or is it, as I mentioned previously, a ritual, a natural blood sacrifice that women have to make in order to ensure the survival of the human species? And so in this one, we're going to talk about my theory in particular that menstruation began as a result of the fact that women or females were no longer able to procreate through the act of parthenogenesis. Let's begin with the theory of evolution that says that all life on Earth began with a single-celled organism. So logically, it should follow that the first living human species that was able to procreate was also a single-sex organism. And so males and females didn't technically exist. We weren't able to really divide the two or to define both sexes until we had two. So before there were male and female opposites, there was this thing that possibly had a female anatomy, or anatomy that was very similar to the female anatomy that we know today. And that thing was able to procreate without the need of the male sperm. So just for the sake of clarity, we're going to call that thing the female, or the XX female. So this XX female, according to my hypothesis, and I presented this idea to my son, who was just not having it. He's a teenage boy, and so he didn't want to hear what I had to say about males being created as a result of a genetic mutation, that females used to just clone themselves through the act of parthenogenesis. And parthenogenesis is not uncommon among different species. It's very, very rare in the human species, but it is not impossible. And so what I explained to him, or tried to, was that the male was birthed as a result of a genetic mutation in the parthenogenesis process. And so these females used to clone themselves. And then at some point, the female cloned something or produced something that didn't have an XX chromosome, but had a broken or supposedly broken chromosome, which turned out to be the XY chromosome, or the male. And so after she created the male started procreating with other female, and then they created more and more of this mutation, these males, what we know today as males. And from that point on, we had 2 different sexes. And then eventually the female became dependent on the male to procreate. Through the evolutionary process, it was now necessary to get sperm, or rather than the female creating her own sperm, the female now depended on sperm from her opposite, or her counterpart, her male counterpart. Now, I understand, of course, for a male, this is going to be extremely hard to accept. And maybe even for a female, we don't want to believe that we are here, or that our children are here, or family members or whoever are here as a result of a genetic mutation, as a result of an accident. But mutations are nature's way of evolving and creating something new and possibly even better. So mutation is not a bad thing. Genetic mutation is not a bad word and shouldn't be looked at as a bad word. It should be looked at the same as we look at evolution or development. But let's take a closer look at parthenogenesis and the possibility of parthenogenesis among human. It's already been proven that certain species of birds, snake, even sharks, and certain reptiles can reproduce through parthenogenesis. Parthenogenesis is a type of asexual reproduction. The word comes from the Greek parthenos, which means virgin, and genesis, meaning creation. This occurs as a result of spontaneously activated oocyte, which means that an immature ovum begins to replicate itself as it matures, producing a clone. Although the process is not that uncommon in human females, it almost always results in the development of an ovarian tumor. The other type of asexual reproduction is androgenesis, meaning asexual reproduction of a male. This occurs after an egg is fertilized by a male sperm, but rather than fusing with the sperm, the female's nucleic material or DNA is forced out of the cell and the male DNA begins to replicate. In this case, the genetic clone still requires an ovum to act as a transport or a host. This phenomenon is even rarer and has only been observed in certain species of shellfish. In 1995, a 3-year-old boy called FD presented with developmental and genetic irregularities, including having cells containing the female XX chromosome. Doctors concluded that he was born as a result of parthenogenesis, but he wasn't an exact clone. FD was classified as a parthenogenic chimera, meaning his body contained both male and female genetic material, and that in his case, the clone egg of the female fused with a fertilized embryo and used it as a host. Scientists believe that if they were able to map the whole genome of all newborns, that they would find that parthenogenesis and other genetic abnormalities or anomalies are not as rare as we think. In species where parthenogenesis is common, menstruation does not occur. Because the egg can no longer fertilize itself or replicate on its own, it disintegrates, and thus the beginning of the menstrual cycle. So menstrual blood really is a constant reminder that blood equals fertility, and fertility equals possible birth, and birth, of course, it means life. But on the flip side, that blood or blood from the uterus can also represent, in the case of miscarriage, death. And that is the possible origins of the fear of menstrual blood, and why throughout many different cultures, throughout the centuries, throughout history, we've seen so many restrictions being placed on females who menstruate, and so many laws that are created specifically to control or to restrict the movement of menstruating women. And so this entire month of January, we're going to be exploring menstrual blood, rituals based on menstruation, certain restrictions or cultural traditions and restrictions that were placed on menstruating women, how to prepare for menarche, and how to prepare for perimenopause and menopause. So you can find me here every moon day at noon, where we'll always be talking periods. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.